about, we haven't talked about family. I mean, we haven't talked about lots of things, but of course we can't go through the entire book in an hour, but we're doing a good job. But what about family? Why do you say, and why do you devote a chapter to building your imperfect family?
Well, all families are imperfect and everybody cares about their families. I mean, anybody who says I don't care about my family, they're just lying. We actually, it's very, very important that we understand that the strange and magical nature of family relationships. There's some of the most intense love relationships that we have, and we didn't choose them. It doesn't even make sense. It's almost like it's almost a mystical thing that people have. Those people who can drive you absolutely around the bend, make you completely crazy, and you didn't even choose the relationship, and you feel great sorrow where there's schism. This is something that we need to understand. Now, again, the oxytocin neuropeptide that we talked about earlier is in greatest abundance with your kin. And that's an evolutionary phenomenon. Your kin are very important to you. On the Pleistocene, 500,000 years ago, if you break with your kin, you might walk the frozen tundra and die alone. Or in, I guess, 1630, when my family bailed out of Lancashire, they probably were getting thrown out of their kin. Not enough oxytocin. All I can say is they did a little bit better in Massachusetts, I hope. The truth is you need that. That's really important. So understanding the imperfect nature of the family and making the relationship a little bit better is a lot of what we talk about, because that requires knowledge, and that has a certain set of skills attached to it that we can all get better at.
Yeah, and you talk about one of the things that really breaks a lot of families, or distresses a lot of families, is difference of values and difference of views, and the importance of putting that to one side.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's a big there's always an intergenerational problem in families where young people have different ideas than their parents, and their parents have not quite let them go as adults. And so the result is, how can you think those things? Those are contrary to our religious values or our political values or our social values. And we see this all the time in the States, where kids will come back from college and they'll tell their parents that they're fascists, or even more frequently what will happen is that you know kids come home and their parents are still kind of hippies, and their kids are working for an investment bank or something, and one way or the other everybody's sort of disappointed by the fact that there's some sort of values difference. Okay, now here's a way to deal with that, because these kinds of things are actually inevitable. Live the life you want, but don't tell people that disagree with you that their values are stupid. Almost all of the family schisms come from values schisms, not from behavioral schisms. Live the life that you want. If you're doing something your parents disagree with, they're going to forgive you. I mean, I've got the data on this. I'm not making this up. In virtually all the cases, it's very rare, because of the way you're living, your parents disown you. What really happens is that the schism with your parents is that you tell your parents that they're evil, racist fascists, or whatever it is, because you're telling that their religion is stupid. Let them live their lives too. This is really important. I mean, my kids don't vote the way that I do, but they don't think I'm an idiot. Well, at least they don't say that I'm an idiot. And that's really important. So pay attention to respect other people's values while living the life that you want to live, and letting other people live their life too.
Mm. I mean, the same goes, I suppose, with friendships. You do choose your friendships, and you can let go of your friendships. And you have some data about the amount of people that are saying these days they wouldn't be friends with someone who voted differently. I mean, the results are from the States, but we've had our own great
Right.
divisions here, which have split families and friends. And what the advice is the same there?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Brexit was really fun for a lot of families. I spent half my life in the States and the other half in Barcelona. And in Barcelona, families are being split apart by the independence of Catalonia and the referendum. And it's the same thing in every country. Every country's got their thing. And Americans will look at Great Britain and go like, "You'd stop talking to your mom because of Brexit? What's wrong with you? It's not that important." It's like, yeah, well, come here and tell us that. I mean, it's really important to people here. Why? Because there's so many values that are loaded on these political issues. It's not the politics per se, it's all that it represents. And it's you rejecting me, et cetera, et cetera. But by the way, this is an important point to make, is that if somebody's profiting when you hate somebody for political reasons, or you walk away from a friend, it's a cable network, it's a social media platform, it's a politician. When you hate, somebody's profiting, but it's not you. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. You're being conscripted into somebody else's culture war. It's time to be a conscientious objector and love other people more.
So, one of somebody says to the point about families, some people break with families because they choose to do so. Others lose family through illness and accident, and they have no choice, but they need to manage their circumstances. So,
Right.
of course, you can't choose the situation that you are always in. You know, there are a lot of
Right.
things that life throws at people that they would not wish for.
Absolutely. And learning and growth is incredibly important for us to understand ourselves and ultimately to get happier. Part of that is the losses that we feel. I've written a lot about sadness and grief. Sadness is a basic negative emotion. It involves literally a specific part of the brain that sadness is processed in. It's called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. Nobody needs to write that down. It's just a part of the brain that's dedicated to affective pain, mental pain, when we're either rejected or lose somebody, or we're separated from somebody that we love. And the reason for that is that evolution wants us to not be separated from people, because people, when they stick together in packs, they're more likely to survive. You don't want to be separated from your tribe or your kin or your family, is what the way that it works out. Well, sometimes it happens. And when that happens, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, it's highly active and it's incredibly painful, mentally painful for you. Here's an interesting little trick, by the way. If you have a bad breakup, this is one of the ways that people in their 20s and 30s, especially their 20s, this is where they have a whole lot of grief and sadness that they can't control, and there's not much they can do about it. Is when your beloved leaves you. That part of the brain, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, is best treated by an analgesic called acetaminophen or paracetamol. In the United States, that's called Tylenol. That's a very funny drug. You should never take too much of it. It's hard on your liver. But what you find is that it makes your dorsal anterior cingulate cortex a little bit less active. And new research shows that when you're very sad about losing a loved one, or having a bad breakup, that just taking ordinary Tylenol for a couple of weeks can relieve some of that pain, because it's a brain phenomenon.